Wanted to thank everybody who's able to join us today. Especially wanted to thank some of our special guests who we'll introduce in a moment. This is the last day of what has been a month of virtual awards for the Gothics, something we traditionally do in person. But with everything going on in the world, first with the COVID-19 pandemic, we were forced to move it to a virtual format. So as this is the last day of the awards, we wanted to take a moment to thank all of our first responders. We can't get everybody. So what we wanted to do is invite some of our athletic alumni who have been serving on the front lines of the pandemic. And each of them has a very different perspective. And we're going to introduce you to each of them. They'll have an opportunity to tell you a little bit about themselves and what they've done to really serve our communities. But first and foremost, we want to introduce one of our most special Hall of Fame alumni, Bob Delaney. I'm sure everybody knows his name. Everybody may not have met him. Bob is a 2006 inductee into the NJCU Athletics Hall of Fame. And this year, he was honored with the highest award you can receive from the NCAA Theodore Roosevelt Award. Bob's life has been that of service. He started after his basketball career at NJCU ended as an undercover state trooper in the 1970s, who infiltrated the mafia and was able to, really enact change through what he did undercover in the 1970s. He went on to have a 25-year career in the NBA as a referee, and after retiring, became the vice president of officiating for the NBA. Since retiring from that, he's now a special advisor to the SEC, probably the biggest conference in college sports. So before we talk to some of our alumni, we wanted to bring Bob on to have a few opening remarks.
Thanks, Ira. As Ira shared all that information, that means only one thing: I can't hold a job, right? I mean, I go from an honor to be here with you, and we're going to share some things as we go through today. But I wanted to, it's kind of like when Jeff asked me how I'm doing, I said fine, when in reality I'm not. With all that's going on in our world today, it's hard to be fine. It's hard to be good. The trauma that we experience is so impactful to all of us. If you follow, May was Mental Health Month, and it's followed in June by Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month. And so I wanted to share just a little bit of time in sharing, because so many of you who serve are in that high-risk group for post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress is a human condition. Sophocles wrote 2 plays about the warrior not knowing how to act after coming home from battle. This is around forever. After the Civil War, it was called soldier's heart. After World War I, it was called shell shock. After World War II, it was referred to as battle fatigue. After the Korean and Vietnam Wars, it was referred to as flashbacks. Today, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. I have been doing work in this area with law enforcement, firefighters, first responders for 4 decades, and have moved over the last 2 decades to doing work with the military, multiple trips to Iraq and Afghanistan, and spending time with those who serve. Coming to an understanding and a better this conversation, I've actually changed terminologies. My other responsibility is that I have an MBA Cares Ambassador. It's the only responsibility I have with the MBA today. And they have a program called for Troops. The work that I do is going and spending time with those who serve us and their families to help them better understand the traumas that they experience. Because as I said, those who serve go where trauma is. That's their job. And so having that understanding, I came to a realization about how stigma hurts this conversation. Stigma hurts many conversations. And the stigma that exists here is that it's as if it's a weakness to talk about post-traumatic stress. I experienced post-traumatic stress after the undercover job that Ira referred to. And I was hiding everything. I was making believe I wanted to live up to the image that was being projected onto me. They were parading me around, sending me before Congress, having me do radio and TV shows and speaking before law enforcement groups. And everybody was telling me what a tough guy I was because I infiltrated the mob. But they didn't see me at 2 o'clock in the morning walking around my house pushing shower curtains back with my gun out, thinking they're coming to get me. All of the things that were going on inside of my head and in my emotions were playing out, but I was hiding all of that. That's more likely than not when dealing with trauma. We hide our true emotions. And I'm not going Dr. Phil on you and asking you to stand up in front of 20 people and say, this is what I'm experiencing. But I do believe in peer-to-peer conversation and the ability to have someone you trust and in a safe place be able to share your emotions so that we get it out, so that we talk about these things. And, I changed the terminology to mind health instead of mental health because words matter. And also to operational stress versus post-traumatic stress. And the military has adopted that terminology. The MBA adopted the mind health. We have physical health, we have emotional health, we have medical health, we should have mind health as well. Same with operational stress. We have stress as a result of the operations and the work that we do. So to all of you that serve, I say thank you. To all of you that serve, understand this is a human condition that we're all susceptible to. And the other part of what is taking place in our world today, we see played out on TV stations, night in and night out. Change is difficult. Just think of yourselves in your athletic careers about how you wanted to change something that became a habit and how difficult that was. I was disappointed, hurt, to see what took place in Minnesota. But even more so for what's taking place by some of the words being said. Robert O'Brien, the director of the National Security Advisor for the White House, said yesterday that only 99.9% of law enforcement are all good. And there are only a few bad apples. Until we confront the situation and talk about what it really is, we're not going to create the change. If we're going to hide behind and say 99.9% of folks are fine, and only 0.1% is causing what's causing in today's world, we're blind. We're not being willing to have this conversation. There are racist cops. We have to identify a problem before we can change it. We had a bully with a badge in Minnesota and 3 other people that were unwilling to say stop. That's not servant leadership. That's not what you raise your hand and your oath of office. And until we attack these kinds of things and police ourselves, and what I say to all the great law enforcement officers, they may wear a similar uniform to you, but they're not cut from the same cloth. When you have a bad apple on a team, you get rid of that bad apple so the team flourishes. That's our responsibility. We have to get rid of anyone. If that's the kind of demeanor that they're bringing to a job of service, that change has to be created. And it's a responsibility for all of us. It's not looking for hero leadership of one person that's going to make this change for us. It's about us. Us versus them. It's only all us. And until we get to that point, we are going to be walking this path. But my hope is, and I had a tough time with hope over the last few days, I got to be honest. Shawn, I thank you for the post that you made because it helped me. Because I was getting to the point, man, I lived through the 60s. And seeing this come back again at this level and understanding that the anger and the protests are just and right. The looting and the fire and destruction is criminal acts. There's so many layers to this. And there's not only so many layers, the intelligence is coming back and showing that it's agitators as well as anarchists, and there's so many layers to it. We can't just point and paint everybody with one brush. The same way cops don't want to be painted with the same brush. For some of you, you're too young to remember, but what we have in our world today of the respect for those who serve in the military did not exist when I was in college. The military was not given respect. And when respect is a bridge that has to go from one to the other. My hope is that we can become part of this hope, that we can make a difference, we can make a change, and doing it together, and identifying when something needs to be confronted, to not think of confrontation as a bad word. That confrontation is something that creates change. Shawn, turn it back to you or Ira.
We'll go back to me at this time. Bob, thank you so much for those words of wisdom, and we appreciate you being with us today. So we have some of our athletic alumni on that we talked about earlier that we want to get some words from, because they have been serving during this really difficult time. I'm going to quickly just say who's on, and then I will go through and we'll get some words from each of them. First of all, Michael Patterson from the NJCU baseball team. We're going to start with him in a moment. He is a New Jersey State Trooper. We also want to acknowledge another baseball player. We have two on, Andrew Niech, who is now a paramedic. Michael and Andrew, I believe you guys were teammates for a couple of years. We have Dan Gaul, a member of the men's golf team. He's graduating and he's going to be an EMT. We have Rob Bielan, who is really two sports here, because he was a men's soccer student athlete in the 90s, went on to become a very successful head coach of the women's soccer team until he retired from that role, and is, speaking of retiring, is about to retire from a long career as a firefighter. And speaking of firefighters, he's going to be entering the academy hopefully sooner rather than later, and that's Bill Feehan from the baseball team. So we want to give Bill a shout out as well. We're going to start with Mike Patterson. Mike has been a great contributor to NJCU Athletics since his graduation. Was that 2013, 2014, Mike?
Yeah, 2013.
So we have Mike on today for two reasons. Number one, to thank him for his service as a New Jersey State Trooper and as a great friend of NJCU Athletics. But we also want to pay tribute to his brother, Tariq, who unfortunately passed away from the COVID-19 virus. And to honor, Mike's family, his mom, Karen, Tariq's wife, Brandy. And Mike, can you just, first of all, just tell us how your family's doing right now?
And we just take it day by day, Ira. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. And Mr. Bob Delaney, thank you so much for your words as well. But we just take it day by day, Ira. It's no easy way to get through this. I mean, I feel, I lost my oldest brother. The reason why I went into law enforcement in the first place, and most of what I do is modeled after him, and I didn't realize that, unfortunately, until after he passed. But just a big-time role model, a family man, and everything that I do now, I'm just trying to do it to the best of my ability to honor him and take care of his 3 children as well, and make sure his wife isn't needed for anything. I just feel for my parents during this time. They lost their firstborn son, had him young, and he was everything to the family. So it's a very difficult time, but the best we can do is stand together, stand strong, and continue day by day with close relationships.
Mike, can you tell us about how you have served during this pandemic in your role as a state trooper?
Well, really, I can't even highlight my role as a state trooper. I mean, really, it's the nurses, it's the EMTs, it's the doctors, who are really in the trenches during this time. We slowed it down big time. We limited human interaction, hand-to-hand contact, and I really can't take credit during this pandemic. We just, we mitigate as much as we can, but I would say it's definitely medical staff who were truly on the front lines during this thing.
Mike, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Speaking of nurses, and for those who joined late, we did invite 3 active nurses that are recent graduates Nicole Sarica, as some of you may have heard me mention earlier, is an ICU nurse. All three young ladies I'm about to mention played for Coach Bielan. Nicole's an ICU nurse, actually just got off a very long shift and was going to be with us, but has to get back to work about 6 o'clock tonight, so needed some sleep, so she was not able to join us. We also invited Amanda and Chelsea Spethman, who are both nurses. And again, they are working right now, so they cannot join us. But I do want to bring up, Rob Bielan as our next guest. I mentioned he is a firefighter and will be retiring from that. Before we talk about how firefighters have helped during this, Rob, do you want to talk about the three young women real briefly, and just how proud you are that they are out there serving the community?
Sure. Hi, Ira. Thanks for putting this together. Mr. Delaney, thank you for talking about post-traumatic. It's out there, and we all have a touch of it, and I appreciate. And like you, I try to, step up and talk to people when it happens. But there's only so many people who understand exactly what we went through. And Mike, sorry about the loss of your brother. And as a state trooper, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I'm sure Mr. Delaney could attest to this. We've all had our 9/11s, and we've all had our situations. So for Mr. Delaney, it was undercover. For 9/11, it was firefighters and first responders, a lot of them. The police, our PD, who's second to none in this state, local and state. They have their times when they have to step up, such as today, in certain locations, right? But to talk about the three girls. The only thing that I could say about these three women, which makes them no different than the rest of the girls that I coached over the year, was taking my job as coach of a university that I still adore and call home. It was my job to instill in them something a little bit more than coaching. To instill in them was a lot of our kids that we get at NJCU come from backgrounds where there was a lot of diversity, but there wasn't a lot of structure. So what I tried to instill in my girls over the years, besides making them able to step up to the next level of their lives and accomplish any job or mission they set out for, was, again, Mr. Delaney and Mike can understand that, and our other PD and FD on, chain of command. And as soon as I instilled chain of command into all of these players and showed them what their worth is and what their strengths are, they all followed in some kind of service to the public. So the Spethmans, their father is a big paramedic for Hackensack, and he's like a legend up there. But they also, I believe, are on lists, I think Chelsea to be a fireman. So they want to give back. But to talk about the Spethman twins was an honor to have them, because from day one, they came in structured. And their concept was all about team. And their concept was all about lifting each other up. And I got to tell you, those are two of the strongest little girls I've met. Now, Nicole Sarica comes out of Linden, just like a Bayonne, Jersey City, just a girl who had to work for everything she received. Luckily, she had great parents as well. But Nicole, she always wanted to give back. And being, a nurse in that unit at this time, I mean, she was at my house 2 weeks ago. Her and Jen Albuha, who's a state trooper, one of my other former players. And we just sat in the yard and, like Mr. Delaney said, I listened a lot more than I spoke, because Jen and Nicole was shell-shocked, working 16, 18, 20 hours straight, coming home, turning around, deconning her clothes, going back. These are the girls of this character. But the whole time that she was talking to me, and I've spoken with the Spethmans, the big thing I could say is they never complained. They just talked about what they had to do and what their missions were. And that's why they were successful collegiate athletes.
And Rob, can you briefly mention what firefighters are doing? You're in Bayonne. What firefighters doing during this time?
Sure. So what we did was, of course, unprepared. Well, prepared to an extent, but very unprepared. So we're first responders. EMS, defibrillator. We can do all that stuff. So immediately the phone call started coming in for not feeling well. The reality of it was that our EMS was so inundated with phone calls that now people started calling for anything, although it was COVID related. So for instance, you call and you say, I have a fever, I'm not feeling well. and the firefighters rushed to the scene to find out that they had COVID. The calls were coming in as, I have a gas leak in my house. People were just reaching out, and there wasn't enough of us to help all of them, but we did our best, and, you know, mission accomplished. So what our first responders were doing, we had a lot of standard operating procedures set in place. Our chief had implemented, and our battalion chiefs went to every single EMS call to make sure that not only did we lower our contact if possible, but we can direct and decon, and then of course not bring it back to the house, to the firehouse, and infest, you know, another 10, 15 people. So it was a really touch and go, but you know, again, chain of command and great leadership, we've pretty much accomplished that mission, and the curve in Bayonne has lowered immensely.
Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ira.
We're going to bring up Andrew Niech. Andrew Niech was a very successful member of the NJCU baseball team. Our all-time leader in hits with 206. So he put up some impressive numbers over a 4-year career. And since graduating, went to the field of being a paramedic, and has now serving in that role. And Andrew, first of all, thanks for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit more about, you know, how you've been serving during this crisis?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. As everybody can kind of tell, I'm probably at work, so things are a little fluid. But so for us, things were a little different. I mean, most of the guys, you know, we have a couple guys from fire. We definitely have some people from law enforcement. But, you know, typically we do emergencies. We do, you know, people that get really, really sick really, really fast. And our job kind of changed for this. That wasn't necessarily the case. We were dealing with, you know, something that they didn't put out a lot of information because nobody had any real reliable information in the beginning. So we kind of got sent out in more of like a public health role. So we had to go to people's homes and try to explain to them, you know, hey, this is kind of what's going on. You know, we got a bunch of nurses and doctors doing everything they can. There's literally actually no room in the hospital. They're actually treating people in the parking lot, which, you know, I know the guys in North Jersey, it's not an unfamiliar sight to see them set up tents and all that, which were on the news. So we were kind of, I guess, the best description would be like we were the gatekeepers for the hospital. So we would have to go out and kind of decipher like who really needed to go see a doctor and who could wait a little bit more. And that's a decision that you don't ever really want to make. I mean, you know, there's some people that have been in this business for a long time, and, you know, trying to tell somebody, you know, you're sick, but you're not really that sick. Can you hang on for us for a couple more days and we'll absolutely come back and try to help you the best we can, but there's just no room. They don't teach you that. No matter what course you take, no matter what class you go through, no matter how much medicine you understand, nobody's going to teach you how to go out and basically triage all these people, which is a term that's used very loosely in our business. But that's what this is for people that, you know, don't necessarily work in public service or public safety. It's a very large triage incident. So you're trying to get the people that need the most care, that care, except it's everywhere. And, you know, I'm sure the nurses on here can kind of attest to it too, that as things went on, we got more and more information, which was very helpful. But that initial beginning surge, there wasn't a lot of reliable information. And in medicine, we usually have like very, not strict, but we have pretty good guidelines about how to treat certain illnesses and injuries. So trying to help somebody to, you know, treat or fix what's wrong with them, and there's really no standard for what's going on, is definitely an interesting part of medicine to be a part of. But again, hospital staff and, you know, everybody that I work with, as well as fire PD, everybody did, you know, I feel like everybody did the best that they could with what, you know, their department provided them with, you know, up to and including, you know, I know Mike kind of sold those guys short, but, you know, we were even trying to take care of our guys in law enforcement, you know, try not to send them into houses unless it was absolutely necessary, you know, and just trying to reduce the amount of people that were exposed to this. So that's kind of my lens. My lens was slightly different in healthcare. So it was one of the things in healthcare that we weren't really trained for. Aside from like protecting ourselves, we were obviously always, taught about PPE and wearing, face coverings and gloves and how we handle ourselves in that manner. But as far as like actually understanding this disease or this virus as it, lasts over the long term, there's still a lot of questions that have to be answered about that.
Andrew, thank you so much for your being with us and for sharing what how you've been able to contribute during this tough time.
Absolutely. If I could just have one more second, I just wanted to put something on the back of what Mr. Delaney had said.
Sure.
Because I know we have some young people, and I'm not trying to call myself old as well or anybody else here. But anybody that's, starting out in public safety, public service, just with everything that's going on now, we've kind of shifted slightly for a brief moment from the coronavirus to, what's going on in all these big cities. Just for all the young people, if you're just starting or you're just getting into public service, safety, law enforcement, fire, you should look at what's going on and try to take the lens of, ask yourself, are you the right person to go out and serve the public? Because if you can't really answer that question or you have some doubts, you should probably look at something else that really you enjoy, because at the end of the day, you have to be willing to serve the public. And this is kind of the result when people are unwilling or have gotten tired with serving the public. So don't look at it as, a big media stunt or anything political. Just look at it as, you really have to want to go out and deal with the general public every day that you're called to go to work. So, and recognize that when you're done doing that, it's time for you to move on to something else that you can enjoy.
Thank you, Andrew. And the last individual I wanted to bring up before we turn it over to Shawn and Bob is a very recent, still a student, technically, I believe, Dan Gaul, who just finished a 4-year career and a 3-year career as captain of the NJCU men's golf team, trying to become a firefighter, serving as an EMT. And you came in, obviously, you have experience with the virus itself. You people who've been sick. And tell us about, your experiences.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who's spoken so far. It's been very enlightening on what other people have had to deal with and just gone through. I think the hardest part has been, especially as a newer EMT, and backing off what Andrew just said, we're not really trained or taught to not want to take people to the hospital. We're as an EMT, our job is to get you from your home, from wherever your incident is, to the hospital without your conditioning worsening. And it's been a very different adjustment to try to figure out who really needs to go to the hospital, because you're taking someone's life in your hands. Unfortunately, we had a lot of cases across the United States where people who were having your everyday medical condition, whether that be a heart attack, a stroke, things of that nature, who were afraid to go to the hospital to get the proper treatment because of the coronavirus, then ended up, unfortunately, passing away or becoming in a worse state from that. So we've seen a lot less amount of calls for your regular day-to-day emergencies, whereas just you have the emergency setting inundated with coronavirus. So that was something that we're all still dealing with in the medical field. It's different for sure. It's not something easy to deal with or to take lightly, because every life matters, and it's hard to really determine sometimes who really needs help or doesn't.
Dan, thank you so much. Thanks for adding a perspective of a current NJCU student athlete, and good luck to you as you begin what will be a very long career serving others. So thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to both Bob Delaney, and we're going to welcome in our Director of Athletics and Associate Vice President, Shawn Tucker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, definitely you have the mixed emotions. I think Bob alluded to it. How can you say, I'm okay, all right, given where we're at? But as I was sharing with our staff, we had a staff meeting prior to this call where we're going to be honoring all the first responders, is that no time in our time being alive than leaders needing to be leaders. Men and women stepping up in their rightful positions and being the leaders that they have been destined to be. And you all that are on this call, the first responders, healthcare administrators, EMT, state troopers, police force, firefighters, you are all in the job and duty of public service. And I cannot appreciate enough what Andrew was stating at the end about, to work in that profession alone, you need to have a heart for people. And you all epitomize that. And a person that really was a forerunner for NJCU is Bob Delaney. And for the few years that I've gotten a chance to know Bob, he has been absolutely first class in how he has showcased himself, as he's won multiple awards since I've been here. I can't say, Bob, he won so many awards in 2 years all across the world. We were in California. He just won an award with the NCAA, one of the most prestigious awards. What an honor it is for myself and our team to let everyone know that's on this call that you guys are the recipients of the first annual Robert J. Delaney Service Above Self Award. Absolutely an extreme honor. This will be an annual award that we give out to individuals who demonstrate exemplary leadership in the community, campus, classroom, and sport. You guys all did it while you were here as an NJCU student athlete, and you have transitioned extremely well into your profession of service. And so we cannot thank you enough. So as our awards team was thinking about how could we honor not just Bob Delaney, but honor all the men and women that have paved the way and have demonstrated leadership on campus and off campus during their time here. No greater group than we can think about are the first responders that had to be on the front line during this pandemic, and quite honestly are continually on the front line dealing with this newer pandemic that we have all experienced over the past week or so. So without further ado, hats off to you all. I'm going to turn this over to Bob Delaney to share some comments, but what great class that we can bring in and ring in our first ever Robert J. Delaney Service Above Self Award.
Thanks, Shawn. What an honor. And I'm so thankful to each and every one of you for everything that you are doing and how you represent New Jersey City University in the service above self. Each one of you is represented, and we'll note that on this award as the first that will be one of many. A couple things that I would offer to you is that I appreciate you calling me Mr. Delaney, but I'm Bob, and a fellow Gothic, so please feel free to do that. And I thank you for apologizing, Ira, when the interruption came, but it brought me back to my roots. I grew up in New Jersey, and it's Jersey City, man. Okay, and it's okay to disagree or voice your opinion. And so those are all positives. We can't look at this as negative. We've got to be allowed to have voices. And the more that we do that, and the willingness to listen to each other is what's going to help us. But to what you have done, each and every one of you, on the front line of fighting COVID and doing what you've done for your fellow man and woman is just outstanding. It's service above self. And the reason that I was so excited when Shawn and Ira told me that this was the decision about who and whom we are going to give this award to. So thank you for all your service. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep in mind, I refer to things as shadows. We have shadows in our lives. We all have them. The second book I wrote is called Surviving the Shadows, A Journey of Hope into Post-Traumatic Stress. But always keep in mind, no matter where a shadow is, no matter how bad things look, if there's a shadow, that means there's light nearby. You can't have a shadow without light. So it's our responsibility to ourselves and to each other to help us get to that light. Each one of us is going to help one another get to the light. So stay healthy, stay safe, take care of one another, and it's an absolute honor to be with you all.
Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
To all our staff, head coaches, can you guys just unmute and can we give a round of applause to all of our first responders, those that are on the line here? A job well done as we honor them for the first ever Robert J. Delaney Service Above Self Award. We'd actually love for any of our coaches that you just want to share some thoughts on this award and just honoring the recipients of it. I see Pat Devaney on here. I see Carlo, Joe Cullen. Just really briefly, just mind just sharing some thoughts.
Yeah, Bob, it's Pat Devaney over here. I just want to say it's a privilege and an honor, you know, for me to even get to know you and hear your story. And yeah, it's we're happy that this award is even being presented to our people here. So thanks, Bob, and thank you to all first responders. We greatly appreciate you all.
Thanks, Pat.
Jerry, you've had two of your former players represent, and the award today, for those who did not see the graphic, is presented to the NJCU Athletics Community, all members of the NJCU Athletics Community on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic. So to Mike and Andrew and Rob and everybody else who was on the call, Dan obviously just joining the field, you guys were all representative of your peers, and we appreciate you being a part of this. We had two baseball players who played for you, Jerry. Can you just talk about how you've grown leaders who've gone on to become great young men who've then gone on to serve their community?
Well, one of the things we talk about in our program is my report card really doesn't come out until a decade down the line. We sort of look at a decade view. So if these guys are a testament to our program, because they're approaching that decade right now, I couldn't be more proud of the way we do things and the way the kids respond. And we have a couple of our current players on the call right now. And again, it's just constant messaging. And it really doesn't matter what I say. It matters what the actions they do. And Michael and Andrew, they are always willing to give back. We just had a Zoom call the other day with Rob Roman. He stepped in, he talked to the kids. And it's just that constant family atmosphere. And it's really what makes me proud every single day to get up and do what I do. And I just look forward to every day for these guys to continue to grow and again, keep making me proud every single day. Because in the end, it really doesn't matter what I do. They got to make themselves proud. And again, I'm just very excited about the direction of the program, knowing that my current players have people like Rob, like Mike, like Andrew, and several others to lean on. It's not just a call with me. Mike and Andrew, they'll give their number to our current players and sit down and talk with them. And that's really what it's all about. And that's what being a coach is all about. And I appreciate them. And like Pat said, to all the first responders on the call and to Bob, I appreciate all you do for our university and our kids and the messaging you give. So hopefully all the people on the call lended an ear and really took in what you were trying to say today, because awards are one thing, but it's the messaging behind the award. It's what the award stands for. And you stand for something that makes this whole university proud. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Again, we want to congratulate, first of all, the first responders and those in public service who were able to join us today. Mike Patterson's still with us. Dan Gaul still with us. Rob Bielan's with us. Andrew Niech actually had to leave to take a call. and for those who are going to be in that field in the future, such as Bill Feehan, who's still with us. Thank you guys. You are all representative of your peers, and that's what this first award is. The NJCU Athletics Community on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic are the inaugural winners of the Robert J. Delaney Service Above Self Award. And congratulations again to everybody. We all just continue to hope you all stay safe and healthy, and just praying for a better world.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you for your leadership on it. And as we close off and send off, safe travels to you all. I think Ira said it best at the end. A better world is ahead of us. So keep the faith. Don't lose sight of your purpose. And we can make a change one step at a time in our local community. So let's do it.